Welcome back. Today, you're going to learn how to import modules and organize your code across multiple files. And that is something every real project needs. So right now, your code is just living in one file, and that's fine for learning. But the moment you try to build something even a little bit bigger, it becomes hard to manage. So we're going to try to get away from that and learn what it is that we can do to break up our code to make it a bit more manageable. So what we're going to cover today is bringing in tools that already exist without rewriting them, splitting the code into multiple files, and then understanding what a main file is and how your project can flow across different files. So let's start with the core idea. Modules. What is a module? A module is just another Python file. That's it. You can write your own modules, or you can use ones that come with Python. So when you import a module, you're saying, hey, I want to use a code in that other file without rewriting it in here. Let's look at an example using a module that's already built into Python. Let's say you want to write today's date. Well, guess what? Python already has a module for that. I'm going to go ahead and type some code. And so what we see right here, this statement right here, import datetime. This is loading in Python's built-in datetime module. And this file contains code for working with dates and times. So if we take a look right here, we could see that this line is calling a function named today. And it's from this section inside of datetime. And what it does is it's going to give you the current date from your computer. So we're going to assign that today, and then we're going to print using F strings. So let me go ahead and run this code. Okay, and we can see that today's date is 3/31/2025. All right, so check this out. This is really, really cool because we didn't have to write a single line of logic to figure out the date. Somebody already wrote it, and we just imported it, and that somebody was Python. So one of the things that we can do, if you click this, you can see all the code that this belongs to. And we can even see pydatetime.py. This is the module that this code lives in. So there's a lot of code written in here. So this is really cool because Python gave this to us. And so this is the power of modules. Rather than have to write all that logic to figure out the date, somebody already wrote it and you just import it and then you can use it into your code. So there are a couple of ways that you can import code. And so far, we just learned about this first option. This is option 1, and this is importing the full module. And so this is so you're bringing in the whole toolbox, and you have reference to everything using that module name, like what we just saw, datetime.date.today. But let's say you want to only use part of the module, and that's going to lead us to option number 2. And this option allows you to import only what you need. And let me give you an example of that. I'm just going to comment this out. All right, so I'm going to paste in some code. Okay, and so what this says right here, only import the part date from the module datetime. And this now allows us just to write date.today. Today is that function, and if we were to print that code, we're going to get the today's date as we did previously. All right, but what the difference is, again, is we're only importing this date from datetime. So let's compare it. This one right here, we imported the full module. We imported datetime. And as you see, we had to reference datetime.date.today. And in this instance, we actually imported date from the datetime module. So all we need to reference now is date.today. And this is only giving us just that date part of this datetime toolbox, this datetime module. Alrighty, let me just, option 2, import only what you need. Okay, let me go ahead and comment this out. Just get rid of all of that. All right, so far what we've done so far is we've imported something that already exists. We got some code from Python, we got the module from Python, and we imported that into our code. But what happens when you write a function and you want to reuse it in other files? or you want to split your code into separate files to stay organized. And this is where creating your own module comes in. So let's walk through it step by step by building a tool to track product inventory in an online shop. So here's a scenario. Let's say you run an online store and you want to track your products. You need to do three things. You need to add new products to your inventory, update the quantity when you restock, print a report showing what's in stock. Now, you could write everything in one file, and that's probably okay, you know what? But as your project grows, sometimes things can get messy fast because you just get like a whole bunch of extra features that you need to add. And so this is where Python's module system can become very powerful. So what we're going to do is we are going to separate our code into two files. And so one file is going to hold all the logic. And so that's going to be the functions for managing your inventory. So as I said, adding new products, updating the quantity, etc. And then we're going to have another file, and we're going to have a file that is called main. And this main file is going to be responsible for running the program. So just to reiterate, like why separating the code is something that is really great to do, especially as your project grows. So think of your program like a small team. So one teammate, which is the file, knows how to do all the calculations and logic. And then you have another teammate, which is another file, that it's just in charge of running the show and telling everyone what to do and in what order. And so when you split things up, and just in general, when you start splitting code up, you can reuse that logic later in other files or even in other programs or tools. And then another reason is you keep your files short and readable. And you can also change how the app runs without touching the logic. And another thing that might not make a ton of sense right now because you don't have a lot of experience in writing large projects, but you can change how the app runs without touching the logic. So with all that, let's get to going. Let's talk about the main file, all right? So what we're going to do right now is we're going to create a file called main. And this main file is going to be responsible for starting the project. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure I'm not in my .venv folder. I'm going to create a new Python file. I'm just going to call it main. All right, so what I'm going to do is I am going to type from inventory import add item. Now, there's all kinds of errors right now because there's no such thing as inventory, okay? And you can see that it's saying, hey, there's no inventory. So what do we need to do right now? We need to create a file called inventory. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Inventory. All right, there's inventory. So inside of this inventory, I am going to keep all the logic for managing products, all right? So let me go ahead and create this add item function. Okay, so I pasted this code in. And so this function takes 3 parameters. It's going to take 3 arguments. And inventory is a dictionary where you store your products. Name is the name of the product. And quantity is how many of that product you're adding. And inside of our function block, it's going to add a new key value pair into our dictionary. And so the key is going to be the product name. All right. And then the value is the quantity. Okay. So this is for our add item. Oh, okay. So now moving along, I'm going to go ahead and create our update stock function because remember our online shop, we need to be able to update stock. So def spelling it all wrong. All right. Okay, so now we have this function, which is our update stock. And what this is going to do is, once again, it's taking in these 3 params, inventory, name, and quantity. And if this name, so if this key is in this inventory dictionary, because inventory is a dictionary, we are going to update the quantity that is assigned to that key. All right, so I'm going to paste this. All right, and so what does this function do? Okay, so it is the list inventory function, and it's going to take this inventory dictionary. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through and look at each key in the inventory dictionary, and we are going to grab that quantity from that key. We're going to print the name of the product and then the quantity. All right, so we have this inventory module. We literally just created our own module right now. So let's go back into main. I kind of jumped the gun adding this for you, but one thing that we can see that is different is that the error isn't as like, it was super loud before. It was like, there's no such thing as this, but now it actually is recognizing that inventory exists. And so we're getting like a little bit of a different error where it's saying, hey, you're not using this. This is unused. Okay. So let's go ahead and use this. All right. So our main file, once again, this is going to pull the logic and it's going to run the whole inventory flow. Alrighty. So right now we are grabbing the add item, but guess what else? We could also grab the update stock and we can grab the list inventory. Alrighty. And so remember, if you go check that out, add item, update stock, list inventory. So what this line says is, hey, go into this inventory.py file and bring me the functions add item, update stock, and list inventory. Who's to say that our inventory isn't going to grow, as the project moves along? So right now we're only grabbing the functions that we need from this module. All right, so I'm going to create a store inventory dictionary. Okay, and so that is an empty dictionary that we're going to use to store the names and the quantities of our products. I'm going to call the add item function that we pulled in from our module, and I'm going to put store inventory because that's the dictionary that we're passing in, and I'm going to say phone case. That's the item name, and then I'm going to say the quantity 30. All right. And then I'm going to call that function again, and I'm going to add a different product. I'm going to pass in the dictionary. I'm going to say charger 50. So we call the add to item function and add two products, and that's going to be stored in this inventory dictionary. And so if we go check out this add item function again, we passed in that inventory object, name and quantity, and then this is what it's going to do. Last but not least, just going to use this as like a little label, but I'm actually going to call that list inventory function that we created, and I'm going to pass in store inventory. All right, so I'm going to run this main.py file. Now I've been using that Control R command, but don't forget that you can also go into the terminal. Okay, and you can also write Python main.py. Sometimes that's easier when you have a whole bunch of different files, because let's say I was on this inventory.py and I ran this run inventory, nothing would happen, is because it would literally just try to run this individual file. And so these are just function definitions right now. There's nothing invoking these functions. However, if I were to go from the terminal and I were to write python.main.py, it would be okay. And it would actually run from the main.py. It would go through here and it would run this program. So something to keep in mind, if you have a whole bunch of different files open, now that you're using different modules and using multiple files, sometimes it's easier just to use the terminal and type Python main. Or whatever the file is that's responsible for starting your program. Okay. There was a lot of stuff that just happened here, so I just want to make sure that I explain exactly what's happening in the code. So when Python runs the code in main.py, it starts at the top of main, all right? And it's like, hey, it sees this import line, and it's going to jump into the inventory module, and it brings in the functions. So in this instance, add item It also brought in update stock and list inventory. So all the stuff is loaded and ready to be used. All right, and so then this line, here we go. We have our store inventory. We create this empty dictionary of inventory. And then we're going to add an item to the inventory. Here we go. And that is going to be referencing this function definition. Okay. Adding another item. And then we have this little like print statement. And then we're going to use this list inventory function. And this is going to print the full list of items and their stock levels. So we have just split the logic from our main application file. And the code, it's cleaner and it's honestly easier to use. Like, look at this. It's so easy to read right now. It's like, okay, we know that we're going to add item, blah, blah, blah. We're going to add it again. We're going to print, we're going to list. And like the details of how you add items are hidden because it's in this module. And here are the details. This is this function definition. Okay. All right. So final thoughts. Let's talk about what we learned today. So we learned what modules are and how they work. And we learned about 2 ways to import. So you can import the full module versus the partial. And remember, partial is just when you're just grabbing the methods or functions that you need. That was the partial way. All right. And then we also learned how to organize your logic into separate files. And then we learned what a main file is and how files work together in a project. So this lesson really sets the foundation for writing real programs because so many programs have many, many files of code. Not everything, but a lot does. All right, so make sure to check the Course Hub for additional exercises and resources. And if this lesson helped you, make sure to like it, subscribe, comment, share it. And if you're in the Discord community, please leave a comment. Feel free to ask any questions in the Help Learn Python Discord channel. All right, see you next time.